At the back of the grand hall, half hidden behind a pillar, a woman in a deep green dress sat completely still. She didn't turn. She didn't smile. She just watched the altar with dark, steady eyes. Chidinma Piers was not dead. She had just been waiting. Amarachi walked down the aisle like she'd rehearsed this moment her whole life, because she had. She was stunning in ivory silk, her smile wide, her eyes wet with what the guests thought were happy tears. She held her bouquet with both hands to stop them from shaking. Kang Seo-jin stood at the altar looking like a man who had made peace with something. He hadn't. He had just learned to look like he had. The priest spoke. The vows were exchanged. Seo-jin said "I do" with a voice that didn't shake. Amarachi said "I do" and squeezed his hands hard enough to leave marks. And at the back of the room, Chidinma stood up. She had seen enough, not because it hurt, because the first move was done. Han Tae-oh had seen her 20 minutes before that. His eyes swept the room the way they always did. Left, right, threat assessment, and then stopped completely. Green dress, still as stone, alive. His hand moved towards Seo-jin's arm, then caught itself. He looked at the altar, looked at the bride, looked back at the woman who was supposed to be in the ground. He did nothing, said nothing, looked straight ahead and swallowed it whole. He would think about that decision for a long time after. Park Sung-min found Amarachi at the reception 30 minutes later. Leaned close. One sentence, "She's here." Amarachi's smile didn't move. Not a single muscle. Where? Back of the hall during the ceremony. "She's gone now." Amarachi picked up her champagne glass slowly. Took one sip, set it down. Find her, like she was asking him to pass the salt, and make sure she understands what coming back here will cost her. Sung-min straightened and walked away. Amarachi turned back to the room and laughed at something Seo-jin's uncle said. Her hands were shaking the whole time. Chidinma was already in the car. Emeka Rhodes sat in the driver's seat watching her in the rear-view mirror. Big, quiet, a scar along his jaw that told stories he never told out loud. He had found her 17 years ago bleeding and alone on the outskirts of Incheon. Carried her to safety. Built her back up piece by piece until she was something even he was slightly afraid of. He was the only person on this earth she fully trusted. You saw him. Not a question. She looked out the window at Seoul sliding past. Yes, and a beat of silence. He looks exactly the same. Emeka said nothing. He knew what those words cost her. He had watched her spend years training herself out of loving Seo-jin. Watched her replace every soft thing inside her with something that couldn't be touched. He also knew the body remembers what the mind tries to bury. Sky lands tomorrow morning. He said it to pull her back. It worked immediately. She doesn't go near him until I say so. Iron. And Emeka. Amarachi knows I'm alive. Things move fast from here. How fast? Chidinma watched Seoul through the glass. Somewhere in that city, her sister was slow dancing with the man who had once chosen Chidinma above everything. Faster than she's ready for. Stop right there. Comment right now. Are you already Team Chidinma, or are you still figuring out what is happening? Hit subscribe because this story is just getting started, and you absolutely cannot afford to miss what comes next. Sky Piers landed at Incheon at 6 a.m. with one carry-on bag and a calm that didn't belong to a 17-year-old. She had her mother's eyes. Dark, sharp, the kind that registered everything and gave back nothing. She had her father's jaw, strong and set, though she didn't know that yet. Not fully. She had grown up with a photograph and a story with holes in it, and a mother who answered some questions and redirected others so smoothly you didn't notice until later. Chidinma held her for a long moment when she walked in, eyes closed, breathing her in. Sky hugged her back the same way she did everything, completely, quietly, without performance. Then she pulled back and looked at her mother. You went to the wedding. I said I wouldn't, which meant you always were going to... She set her bag down. What's the plan? Chidinma handed her a folder. Monday morning, Kang Corporation, 9 a.m., new intern. Your paperwork is clean. Nobody knows your name. Sky read through it, looked up. And when he figures out who I am... He won't. Not until I want him to... Sky studied her mother the way she always did, like she was reading a document for errors. What do you want from him? The question sat between them like a live wire. Chidinma turned to the window. Seoul was grey and early outside. Somewhere across this city, Seo-jin was waking up next to her sister. Everything he took from us. Her voice didn't shake. And then I want him to feel every single piece of it. Seo-jin couldn't sleep. Wedding night, new wife asleep behind him. Seoul glittering 40 floors below. He stood at the window with a glass of water and a feeling he couldn't name. Not guilt. Something older. Something that had lived in his chest like a stone since the night Chidinma died, and had never once shifted regardless of what he did or who he was with or how many rooms he commanded. He had told himself it would get better after the wedding. It hadn't. He stood there until the city went from black to grey to gold, and then he went back to bed and stared at the ceiling until Amarachi's alarm went off. She reached for him first thing. He let her, but his eyes stayed on the ceiling the whole time. Monday morning, Seo-jin sat at the head of his boardroom cutting through quarterly reports when his assistant knocked. New interns are here, sir. Send them in. 4 walked in. He gave them 30 seconds of welcome without looking up. asked them to introduce themselves. First three spoke. He noted names, noted nothing unusual. The fourth spoke. Sky Piers, finance track. He looked up. The room kept moving. People kept talking. But for Seo Jin, everything went extremely quiet. She was looking directly at him. Not nervous, not performing, just looking. With eyes that reached into him and pulled at something so deep he couldn't locate where it lived. 2 seconds. Welcome. He looked back down at his papers. His pen had stopped moving. His knuckles were white around it. Tae-oh, standing by the door, registered every single thing and filed it away without expression. By Wednesday, Sky had made herself impossible to ignore. She caught errors 3 levels above her pay grade, asked questions that made senior analysts shift uncomfortably. Never raised her voice, never showed off. Just quietly, consistently proved that she was the sharpest person in whatever room she was in. She was also watching everything. Building a map. Who was loyal? Who was performing loyalty? Who flinched when Seo Jin's name came up? Who straightened when he walked in? Where the cracks in his empire were, and who was standing in them? Tae-oh watched her watching and felt something cold move down his spine. Thursday evening he found a moment alone with Seo Jin. The intern? He kept his voice level. Sky Piers? Seo Jin didn't look up from his screen. What about her? Her background check is clean. He placed a thin file on the desk. Too clean. And her mother's name doesn't appear anywhere in it. Now Seo Jin looked up. The two men held eye contact for a moment that lasted longer than it should have. Find the mother. Soft. Quiet. The register he used when something mattered more than he wanted it to. Tae-oh nodded and left. Seo Jin sat alone in his office for a long time after that, staring at the file without opening it again. Kidinma saw Seo Jin for the first time up close on Friday evening, and it was nobody's fault, and everybody's fault at the same time. She was leaving a restaurant. His convoy was arriving. Wrong time, wrong place, or perhaps exactly the right place depending on who was doing the planning. She was in the lobby pulling on her coat when he walked through the doors. He stopped. She stopped. 5 feet between them. 5 feet and 17 years and a fake funeral and a twin's betrayal and a daughter he had never held. His face cracked. Just for 1 second. Something behind his eyes broke open, raw and violent, and then sealed itself again so fast she almost missed it. Almost. You. His voice came out wrong. Too low, too wrecked. Mr. Kang. She said his name like he was a stranger, polite, distant. Her heart was running a riot behind her ribs and she gave him absolutely nothing. His security shifted. The lobby held its breath. His hand came up toward her face and stopped itself in mid-air. I think you have me confused with someone. She held his gaze without blinking. Excuse me. She walked past him. Her shoulder almost brushed his as she passed, and she felt him, the warmth, the pull, the thing that had never once gone away no matter how hard she had worked to kill it. She kept walking. Outside the night air hit her face. She stopped. 1 second, eyes closed, hand pressed flat against her own chest. Then she got in the car. Drive? Emeka drove. Neither of them said a word the whole way home. Inside the lobby, Seo Jin stood completely still. His team watched him carefully. Nobody spoke. Tae-oh materialized at his shoulder. Sir, nothing. Seo Jin, that woman, barely sound. Tae-oh said nothing, which was its own kind of answer. Tae-oh. Silk wrapped around a blade. That woman, a long exhale. I saw her at the wedding. The temperature in the lobby dropped. Seo Jin turned to look at his right-hand man with an expression that was very quiet and had no bottom to it. You saw her, at my wedding, and you said nothing. You were getting married. Steady, unblinking. I didn't know what was real yet. She is real. Each word its own sentence. His voice cracked on the last one. He caught it immediately. Sealed it shut. She is standing and breathing and real, and you looked me in the face every single day and said nothing. She didn't come back to fall into your arms. Tae-oh kept his voice low and hard. She came back with a plan. She's been running it since before that wedding. The intern, Seo Jin went completely still, is connected to her. I don't have the full picture yet, but the eyes cancel everything. Seo Jin turned and walked back out the door into the night. Tonight. All of it. Tae-oh watched him go and felt the particular exhaustion of a man who had made a calculation he was no longer sure was right. I need to ask you something right now. Do you think Tae-oh is loyal to Seo Jin, or is he protecting Chidinma? Because something about him is not adding up. Drop your answer in the comments. And tell me how your day is going. I genuinely want to know. I read every single comment. Seo Jin drove himself that night. No driver, no security. He ended up parked outside a building he didn't recognize, and then realized he had been following the car from the restaurant without deciding to. He sat in the dark for a long time. Then he called Tae-oh, the building she went into. I need an address trace. A pause on the line. Seo Jin. Don't. His voice was quiet. Final. Just do it. Amarachi called Chidinma on Saturday morning. Chidinma let it ring. Twice. Picked up on the third. Said nothing. Waited. We need to talk. Amarachi's negotiation voice. Smooth. Practiced. We really don't. You're making a mistake coming back here. I buried myself for 17 years. Still even. Still calm. I raised my daughter alone. I rebuilt everything from scratch while you wore my life like a dress that never fit you. A pause. Tell me where the mistake is. Silence. He will destroy you. Something shifted underneath Amarachi's voice. You think you're running a plan, but you don't know what he's capable of now. What I know about him. You're going to threaten me with information about my own man. Flat. That's what we're doing. He's my husband. For now. Pleasantly. Tell Sung Min to stop following my car. The next time he tries it, the conversation we're having right now becomes much shorter. She ended the call. Across the city, Amarachi sat holding a dead phone and then threw it across the room. It shattered against the wall. She sat in the silence for a moment. Then she picked up another phone. A different one. The one she kept in the drawer. She's making her move. Her voice was cold now. All the performance gone. Stop waiting. I want her gone before she gets to him. Sung Min moved on Sunday night. He wasn't stupid enough to go after Chidinma directly. She had Emeka, and Emeka was not a problem you solved with 2 men and a car. But Sky. Sky was 17 and new to Seoul, and still learning which streets to avoid. He found her walking back from a late convenience store run 2 blocks from the apartment. Alone. Earphones in. He pulled up alongside her slowly. She didn't run. She stopped walking and turned and looked at the car with an expression that was so much like her mother's that Sung Min felt something uneasy move through him. The window came down. Your mother should have stayed gone. His voice was even. Tell her that. And tell her the next message won't be verbal. Sky looked at him for a long moment. Okay, she said it the way you say okay when someone has just told you something completely useless. Then she put her earphones back in and kept walking. Sung Min watched her go and felt the unease deepen. He pulled away. 3 blocks later, Emeka's car appeared behind him and followed him all the way back to his building without ever getting close enough to be called a threat. Just close enough to be a message. Sky told her mother when she got home. Chidinma listened without moving. When Sky finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she stood up and walked to the window. He touched you. No. He came close to you. Yes. Chidinma turned around. Her face was very calm. The kind of calm that meant something had just been decided that could not be undecided. Go to bed? Her voice was soft. Tomorrow you go to work as normal. You don't change anything. Sky studied her mother. What are you going to do? What I should have done the moment I landed. She turned back to the window. Stop being patient. Monday morning, Sky walked into Kang Corporation at 9 a.m. as normal. She made it to the elevator before Tai-O appeared beside her. Mr. Kang wants to see you. She looked at him. He looked at her. She watched him register her eyes again the way he had been doing all week, like a man running a calculation he already knew the answer to but kept hoping would change. Of course. She smiled politely. Seo Jin's office, top floor, Seoul spread out below like a kingdom. He was standing with his back to the door when she entered, hands clasped behind him, still as a man who had been standing there long enough to go cold. The door closed. He turned around. He looked at her the way you look at something that has rearranged the entire furniture of your understanding. Slow, thorough, like he was checking every detail against something he carried inside him. Sky looked back, calm, ready. She had known this moment was coming since she walked through those doors on day 1. Sky Piers. He moved from behind his desk slowly. Piers isn't your father's name. I don't have a father. The words hit him somewhere he didn't show. His eyes moved over her face, her jaw, her eyes. The way she held herself under pressure, still, unblinking, giving nothing away. He knew that posture. He had seen it on exactly one other person in his life. How old are you? 17. The number sat in the air between them, and did its damage quietly. 17. 17 years ago, Chidinma had been... His hand pressed flat against his own chest without him telling it to. Who is your mother? Barely a whisper. Sky reached into her jacket pocket and placed a photograph on his desk. He looked down. Chidinma looked back up at him. Young, laughing, the way she had looked before everything went wrong, and beside her, newborn and wrapped in yellow, a face so small it barely existed yet. Seo Jin sat down. Not like a man who runs an empire sits, like a man whose legs simply stopped. She's alive. No sound in it. Just air. She's been alive. Sky's voice stayed steady, but her eyes were wet at the corners. Just slightly. The whole time. The silence that followed was the loudest thing in the room. Then, something happened in Seo Jin's face that Sky had not prepared herself for. He didn't look relieved. He looked devastated. And then, underneath the devastation, something cold and quiet moved in. Anger. Wait, did you see that? He's not just relieved, he's angry. Comment right now. Do you think Chidinma should have told him herself instead of letting his daughter do it? Because this is about to go in a direction nobody is ready for. Like this video if Sky just became your favorite character. He came to her apartment that evening. No convoy, no security. Just Seo Jin at her door in a dark coat, looking like a man who had been having a very controlled war with himself for several hours. Chidinma opened the door before he knocked. She stepped back. Let him in, said nothing. He walked in and looked around the apartment. Spare. Clean. No excess. No softness. The home of a woman who had learned to need nothing. His jaw tightened as he looked at it. He turned to face her. She stood with her arms at her sides. Cool, controlled, every part of her exactly where she had placed it, except her hands, flat against her thighs, trembling. He saw them. He crossed the room in 4 steps, and she didn't move back, and he stopped 1 breath away from her. Close enough that she felt the warmth coming off him. Close enough that 17 years collapsed into nothing. And then he said her name. Chidinma, rough, wrecked, like he had been holding it the entire time. Her chin lifted. Don't. You're alive. His voice cracked straight down the middle. I've always been alive. Her eyes stayed hard. You just didn't come looking. That landed. She watched it land. Watched something behind his eyes split open. Then something else moved into his expression. Something she hadn't expected. You let me bury you. His voice shifted, quiet. Dangerous. You let me stand over an empty grave and believe... He stopped. Jaw tight. You had my child and you said nothing. For 17 years you said nothing. You married my sister, still even, still controlled. Should I have sent a card? That is not... You believed I was dead because Amarachi told you so. Her voice cracked for the first time, just slightly. She pulled it back immediately. You didn't ask questions. You didn't look. You accepted it, and within a year you were... She stopped herself. Breathed. I was alone and pregnant and running for my life, and you were planning a wedding. The silence between them was violent. I looked for you. His voice dropped to something raw. The first year I looked every single day. Not hard enough. She said it quietly. The quietest thing she had said all night, and somehow the most devastating. He exhaled, long and broken. His forehead dropped toward hers, and she felt the pull. The same pull it had always been, the one that had never once listened to reason. And her hand came up and pressed against his chest to push him back. She felt his heartbeat under her palm. It was running the same way hers was. She didn't push. Her fingers curled into his shirt instead, and she stood there with her forehead against his chest, and 17 years of weight pressing down on both of them at the same time. His arms came around her, slowly, like he was afraid she would disappear again. I'm sorry, into her hair. Destroyed. I'm so sorry. She let herself have 10 seconds. 10 seconds of him, of this, of the thing she had spent 17 years trying to hollow out of herself. Then she stepped back, wiped her face, straightened her spine. You're still married to my sister. Her voice was steady again. And I'm not finished. He looked at her for a long moment. His eyes were doing something she hadn't seen in them before. Something that looked like a man deciding the full direction of his life in real time. Neither am I. Quiet. Certain. Not even close. Amarachi found out about the visit by 10 p.m. that same night. Sungmin had a contact in Chidinma's building. Old habit. He had been running surveillance since the wedding. She sat in the dark of her bedroom. Seo Jin wasn't home, and processed it. Then she made a decision. If Chidinma wanted a war, she would get one. Not the quiet kind. Not the patient kind. The kind that left nothing standing. The next morning, Amarachi walked into Seo Jin's office without knocking. He looked up from his desk, said nothing. She sat down across from him and crossed her legs and looked at him with an expression that had nothing apologetic in it. I know you went to see her. Still nothing from him. I know she sent that girl into your company. I know what she's building. She leaned forward slightly. And I know things about your organization that she doesn't. Things that would be very damaging if they reached the wrong people. The room went very quiet. Seo Jin set his pen down. Slowly. Are you threatening me? It wasn't really a question. I'm reminding you. Her voice stayed smooth. That I have been your wife for 17 years. I know where everything is. I know every deal, every name, every file. A pause. So before you decide to burn this marriage down for a woman who let you grieve her for 17 years, remember that I can make that fire very big. Seo Jin looked at his wife for a long time. Then he stood up. Get out of my office. Seo Jin, you have until tonight to move your things out of the penthouse. His voice was quiet. Final. After tonight, the locks change. Amarachi stood up slowly. Something moved across her face. Not quite fear. Not quite fury. Something between the two. You're making a mistake. I made the mistake 17 years ago. He turned back to his desk. I'm correcting it now. She left, but she didn't go to the penthouse. She went straight to Sungmin. Seo Jin called Chidinma that afternoon. She picked up on the second ring, which surprised them both. Amarachi is going to move against you. His voice was flat, controlled, all business. She has information about my organization she's prepared to use. She'll use you as leverage to get what she wants. A pause on her end. Why are you telling me this? Because Sky is in my building, and if Amarachi decides to be reckless, Sky can handle herself. She is 17. I know how old my daughter is. Sharp, then quieter. I know what Amarachi is capable of. I've been preparing for this since before I landed in Seoul. A silence. What does that mean? His voice shifted. Something careful in it now. It means the messages Sung-min sent Amarachi 17 years ago, the ones where she confirmed she knew I was pregnant before she had me removed, have been sitting in a very safe place for a very long time. He was quiet for a moment. You came back with everything already loaded. Did you think I came back to cry? She said it without heat, just fact. Another silence. Longer this time. Jidinma, her name again. Different this time, not wrecked. Something steadier. Let me handle Sung-min. I don't need... He came within 3 feet of our daughter on a dark street on Sunday night. His voice dropped to something very quiet and very final. Let me handle it. The word "R" sat between them on the line like a small earthquake. She didn't answer immediately. Then, don't do anything that puts Sky in the middle of it. Never. She ended the call. Stood at her window for a long time. Seo Jin handled Sung-min on Wednesday. No violence. He didn't need violence. He had something more efficient. He had the kind of reach that made a person's entire life in a city become suddenly and completely untenable. Every door closed, every contact unavailable, every resource dried up overnight. By Thursday morning, Sung-min was on a flight out of Seoul. He didn't come back. Amarachi was a different problem. She didn't run. She dug in. She released a partial story to a financial journalist. Nothing criminal. Just enough to raise questions about 2 of Seo Jin's older deals. Enough to make phones ring and eyebrows lift and Tae-oh appear in Seo Jin's office looking like a man carrying weather. It's contained for now. Tae-oh set the report on the desk. But she has more, and she knows how to pace it. Seo Jin read the report without expression. She wants a settlement. She wants more than money. Tae-oh paused. She wants Chidinma gone. Seo Jin looked up. She sent word through her lawyer this morning. Tae-oh's voice stayed carefully neutral. She'll sign the divorce papers and hand over everything she has. Every file, every name, every piece of information she's been holding, in exchange for one thing. Silence. Chidinma leaves Seoul and doesn't come back. The office was very quiet. Seo Jin stood up slowly, walked to the window. Seoul stretched out below him, grey and vast and indifferent. She thinks I'll choose the empire. His voice was low. Thinking out loud. She spent 17 years watching me run this organization, and she genuinely believes that when it comes down to it, I'll choose the empire. Tae-oh said nothing. Set up a meeting. Seo Jin turned from the window. Just me and Amarachi. No lawyers, no team. Tae-oh studied him. And what are you going to do in this meeting? Seo Jin picked up his phone. Call Chidinma first. Then I'll know. Stop everything. I need to know. Do you think Seo Jin is going to choose Chidinma or protect the empire? Because Amarachi just played her most dangerous card. Comment your answer right now. And if this story has been living in your chest from the beginning, please like and subscribe. We have more coming, and it only gets more dangerous from here. He called Chidinma. She picked up on the first ring this time. He told her everything. Amarachi's offer, the files, the condition, silence on her end. Then, and what are you going to do? I called you first. His voice was quiet. What does that tell you? A long pause. It tells me you're not as stupid as you were 17 years ago. But the edge in her voice had shifted, just slightly. Chidinma. He said her name like it was the answer to something. I'm not trading you. I'm not sending you away. And I'm not letting her hold anything over either of us for one more day. You'll take the hit to the organization. I've survived worse. He paused. Have you eaten today? The question was so sudden and so ordinary that she laughed before she could stop herself. It was the first time he had heard her laugh in 17 years. He stood at his window and let it wash over him and didn't say a single word until it faded. Seo Jin, meet me tonight. Quiet. Not about Amarachi. Not about the plan. Just meet me. A long silence. Okay. The meeting with Amarachi happened the next day. She walked in dressed like armor, sat down across from him with her hands folded, and her chin lifted, and her eyes doing the thing they always did, calculating distance, measuring angles. He let her settle. Then he opened a folder and slid it across the desk. She looked down. Her face changed. Sung-min's messages. Every single one, time-stamped, authenticated. The ones where he confirmed Chidinma's pregnancy. The ones where Amarachi responded. The ones that proved she had known and acted anyway. Where did you... She stopped herself. Chidinma has had these for 2 years. His voice was conversational, almost gentle. She didn't use them. That's the difference between the two of you. She could have destroyed you long before today, and she chose not to... Amarachi looked at the folder, then at him. Something moved through her expression, complex and layered and too fast to fully read. You love her. She said it like a diagnosis. I never stopped. The room was very quiet. I did love him first. Her voice came out different now. The armor was still there, but something underneath it had shifted. Something that sounded almost like the truth. Before you. Before everything. I loved him, and he never once saw me. He looked at her for a long moment. I know. His voice was not unkind, and I'm sorry for that. I am, but what you did to her. I know what I did. Flat. Final. She looked away from him at the window. Seoul outside. Grey morning light. I know exactly what I did. Silence. Sign the papers, Amarachi. His voice stayed even. And then start figuring out how to live with the person you became. That's the work now. Not this. She looked at the folder for a long time. Then she picked up the pen. The papers were signed by evening. No drama, no final threat. Just a signature, and then Amarachi standing up and walking to the door and stopping with her hand on the handle. She didn't turn around. Tell Chidinma. She stopped. Started again. Tell Sky. Tell her. She stopped again. She couldn't finish it. She walked out. 3 weeks later. The apartment on the 42nd floor. Evening. Soul going gold outside the windows. Chidinma was at the kitchen counter when she heard his key in the door. She had given it to him without ceremony 2 weeks ago. Just pressed it into his hand and walked away before he could make it into something. He had smiled at the back of her head as she walked away. She had felt it without turning around. He came and stood in the kitchen doorway and watched her. Sky called me today. His voice was easy. Something new in it. Something that had been slowly growing back over the past weeks. Warmth. The particular warmth of a man who was being very carefully let back in and knew it and was not taking a single step of it for granted. What did she want? Chidinma didn't look up from what she was doing. She told me I needed to stop hovering over her desk. Chidinma's mouth curved, just slightly. She told me the same thing about me last week. She's terrifying. He said it with unmistakable pride. She gets it from me. She gets parts of it from you. He pushed off the doorframe and came into the kitchen slowly. The stillness is yours. The jaw is mine. Chidinma looked up at him then. He was right in front of her now. That same proximity that never got easier. That same warmth. That same pull that had never once listened to anything she told it. Don't push it. But her voice had nothing hard in it anymore. His hand came up and touched her jaw. Gentle, like the first time it had happened weeks ago, and every time since. Careful, like touching something he was still slightly afraid would disappear. She didn't pull back. I know I can't undo it. His voice dropped. I know there are things I said and didn't say and didn't do, that I will spend a very long time making right. His eyes stayed on hers. I'm not asking you to forget any of it. I'm asking you to let me stay in the room while I fix it. She looked at him for a long time. 17 years of silence. 17 years of rebuilding herself from the ground up in a city with no safety net. 17 years of raising Sky and running and planning and surviving, and telling herself she didn't need him anymore, and almost believing it. She reached up and covered his hand with hers where it rested against her jaw. You have one chance. Her voice was quiet. Real. No performance in it. One. That's all I need. He leaned his forehead against hers, and she closed her eyes, and for the first time in 17 years the stone in her chest moved. Not gone. Not yet. But moving. Outside Seoul blazed and roared and moved the way cities do when they have no idea they're sitting inside someone's second chance. Inside that kitchen on the 42nd floor, Kang Seo-jin held the face of a woman who had survived him and come back stronger. And he made himself a promise. She would never have to survive him again. The end.